I know you've been indoctrinated now into the Aidan Kearney Turtle Boy universe, which is nasty and ugly and frightening. And one of the reasons, as those who have been watching know, that Linda Kenny Bodden is on assignment, as she's been hired by Aidan Kearney for this super secret thing that was supposed to happen today in Atlantic City, New Jersey. All we can say is basically that what's out there is that there was a temporary restraining order that today was going to be reviewed to determine whether it should become a permanent restraining order. Don't know the other individual who is being protected by restraining Aidan Kearney, but from what we understand, it was it was an overwhelming restraint. Some might call it a prior restraint. And as a journalist, that obviously is important to Aidan Kearney. So this morning, with very little notice, and I'm getting this live from Aidan Kearney as he's reporting, he learns it. The court says, we're kind of busy today. Can't squeeze you in. This was set for 1 o'clock this afternoon. And so 4 or 5 hours before that, they pull the plug. So as a New Jersey guy, former prosecutor, that sounds odd to me. What's your take on that before we move into some of the other parts of this story?
All right. Well, as you know, we were saying just before we went on, I've heard this name of this guy from, especially through you guys, and I it's one of those things where you keep hearing it here. I knew nothing about this guy. I know nothing about him. I don't know other than the basics that you told me, in that he's got this secretive, if you will, quote unquote, proceeding. New Jersey has been on the cutting edge, as it is many times, with the change of law that deals with, and I don't know if we're talking about this, but any kind of cyber harassment. It used to be in Jersey that the only way that you could get an order of protection from a court is if you were in a domestic violence relationship. And as prosecutors, we felt, and even as defense lawyers, and we represent, believe it or not, a lot of victims. A lot of victims come to us because of our prosecutorial background to ask them for assistance in the criminal justice system. And it does become frustrating if there is an individual who is seriously harassing, a lot of times via the internet, individuals, and you have to say to them, we can't do anything for you legally because you did not have the criteria under the domestic violence law of having a previous relationship or having lived in the same household. Those are the jurisdictional requirements for a domestic violence restraining order. So you're out of luck. So the legislature responded to that, and the law's slow, but Jersey's quicker than most with cutting edge legislation. And I presume this is what we're talking about here. I don't know for sure that if you are cyber harassing an individual, there are steps people can take in order to go before court, very much like a restraining order in a domestic violence context. And if you prove that, in fact, you are covered under that law, then the judge can order an order of protection like they could in a domestic violence situation. So I'm not sure if that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's all sealed.
Yeah.
Does that tell you anything if it's all sealed?
That's really odd to me. Sealing requires, I don't know. I honestly, I don't want to speak out loud. I don't want to say it's counter because I don't know this area of law very well. People in my firm do it. And they would know it better. So I'm not sure if that's a function, but typically speaking, things aren't quote unquote sealed by the court unless there's a reason. But that could be by operation of law. I just don't know, Michael.
Yeah. Okay. It seemed a little odd not to be on the docket or noted anywhere. And most of the information, little bits of it, are coming right through Aidan himself. So in his live broadcasts. So we don't know what the hell's going on. I've not talked to anybody. I don't expect to see anything show up online. So I imagine the next word we'll hear will be from Aidan Kearney himself to figure out. I mean, really, if you have a temporary restraining order and you postpone at least once the hearing, it kind of becomes more than temporary. It seems the nature of the order should be addressed as sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I wouldn't definitely not take anything away from that, because the courts are, unfortunately, in New Jersey, our judges are way overtaxed with cases. The political establishment, as is typical, and both sides are victim or perpetrators of this, can never find a way to fully staff our judiciary. And we complain about this. There are not enough judges to handle criminal cases, which take priority in the entire criminal justice system, in the entire justice system. Civil cases can be 5, 6, 7 years. Matrimonial cases, domestic violence cases, and they have to triage. And they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So the fact that these judges are working overtime, double time, triple time, they're overwhelmed. So the fact that and by the way, sometimes you're just not ready to proceed. Sometimes the case needs discovery. Somebody's not ready. So having an adjournment, it may seem like it's not temporary, but it's nothing about that shocks my conscience.
I'm throwing this out there and I have no idea. I'm just thinking through my mind. Okay, what are the possibilities? Correct. Could be outright scheduling disaster and they just, something had to go. Possible. I think because, there's some new attorneys in the mix. You might remember Darren Gelber. He was on Long Crime with us many times.
Sure.
He's a New Jersey attorney. Well, he and Linda are now representing Aidan Kearney in this matter. They would have filed their appearance in the form of either a notice of appearance or some sort of pleading to address the hearing that was going to happen today, whatever in the hell it was. That might have suggested to the court they need to kind of think it over, that they weren't able to ramrod this thing through. Now we've got a couple of well-known, well-experienced attorneys that are now representing Aidan Kearney. So maybe we don't want to just rush into this hearing.
Again, I think the courts are prepared to do what the courts are ready to do. They're not going to, respectfully, despite the heft and wonderment of both Linda and Darren, good people. I know them, obviously, both. They're not intimidated by that. I would not be surprised, though, if it were me and I were getting involved in the case. I would want the time to be able to, this is not a joke. I mean, these are serious consequences that flow from these orders of protection. And what I have, at least in my experience, and I train lawyers through the Bar Association all the time, is that too many lawyers are shooting from the hip and they're not prepared and they don't know all the facts and circumstances. Sometimes they don't even know the law completely. And so I don't want to be rushed. I'd say virtually every restraining order hearing we have in my office, and we have a lot of them, we are asking for adjournments on virtually every one of them in order to be properly prepared.
All right. Well, we shall see. The spitballing, I'm sure, will continue until we get the real truth. But at this point, I'm so cynical these days about a lot of the courts that we've dealt with, primarily in Massachusetts, but now it seems to be trickling south. Whenever Aidan Kearney's involved, the spinoff of the Karen Reed case and all of the lunacy that's involved in that, I don't know. I have a hard time giving the court the benefit of the doubt.
Michael, I want to just say something here. I've had my critiques of the judiciary for 30 plus years. In fact, I'm a prolific, commentator against some of the things they do. But one of them is not being influenced by media and the posture of a case. Our judges are not elected in New Jersey. They're appointed by the governor, and after 7 years, they have full tenure, which gives them a lot more discretion to be free and fair. And in my opinion, we debate this, and our prosecutors, like myself, appointed by the governor. We're not elected. So we don't have a constituency we have to appease, whatever. So in all the years, I've had judges I have not liked. I've had judges who I think are harsh and unreasonable and maybe not even that skilled. But doing things duplicitously, I have never found. I think I could say the word never.
Okay. I can, again, I'm not in your shoes. Don't have to practice there. But Massachusetts is very similar in that they appoint them. And to me, that also lends itself to potential problems in bowing to the powers that put you in your seat.
Well, that's,
because you aren't beholden to the electorate. You're beholden to whoever put you there. So either way it could go. We've just seen so much in Massachusetts. I admit I'm jaded. I admit it.